Lindsay Shiver. In July 2023, Bahamian police were investigating a break-in at a beachside bar on Great Guana Cay. They suspected an inside job, so they started searching employees' phones as routine procedure. What they found had nothing to do with the burglary. On the device of a 28-year-old bartender named Terrence Bethel, investigators discovered a WhatsApp group chat. The other participants were Bethel, a local man allegedly recruited as a hitman, and a woman named Lindsay Shiver, former Miss Houston County, wife of an NFL player, and mother of 3 boys, living in a $2.4 million home in Alabama. The chat contained photographs of her husband, Robert. And next to those photographs, 2 words that prosecutors say were never meant to be found. Kill him. Lindsay Shirley was born around 1987 in Dothan, Alabama. In 2005, she was crowned Miss Houston County and placed as runner-up in the National Peanut Festival Pageant, a regional competition with deep roots in Alabama's agricultural traditions. On March 6, 2010, she married Robert Shiver. Robert had been a long snapper for the Auburn Tigers from 2006 to 2008 and enjoyed a brief stint in the NFL before transitioning to the insurance industry. The couple had 3 sons together: Grayson, Landon, and Rhett. They built a life that looked, from the outside, like the American dream realized. The marriage, however, was fracturing beneath the polished surface. Robert filed for divorce in April 2023, citing adultery. Court documents would later reveal that Lindsay had begun a relationship with Terrence Bethel, a 28-year-old bartender at Grabber's Bar and Grill on Great Guana Cay. The affair had apparently been ongoing for some time before Robert discovered it. What happened next was discovered entirely by accident. Bahamian police investigating a break-in at the same bar where Bethel worked suspected an inside job and began searching employees' phones as a matter of routine. On Bethel's device, officers found a WhatsApp group chat between Bethel, Shiver, and a third man named Farron Newbold Jr., a 29-year-old who prosecutors allege was recruited as a hitman. The messages included photographs of Robert Shiver. Alongside those photographs were 2 words that prosecutors allege constituted a murder-for-hire directive. Kill him. The messages were sent on or around July 16, 2023. That same day, a heated argument had erupted between Lindsay and Robert. Someone had photographed Robert at a bar with another woman and sent those images to Lindsay. That same day, Lindsay called 911 on Robert after he refused to let her use their private jet to fly to the Bahamas to meet Bethel. Police body cam footage captured the entire interaction, showing a marriage in its final, bitter stages. 5 days later, on July 21, 2023, Shiver, Bethel, and Newbold were arrested in the Bahamas on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. All 3 pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors also claimed Lindsay had confessed to the plot, though the details of that confession remained sealed. But would a jury believe that kill him was simply an expression of anger, not an actual order? Lindsay was granted $100,000 bail on August 9, 2023. Robert, notably, did not object to her release. By December, Judge Cheryl Grant Thompson allowed her to return to the United States under strict conditions. GPS monitoring at all times, restriction to the state of Alabama, no contact whatsoever with Robert, no entry to Georgia except for court appearances related to the divorce proceedings. But in October 2024, bail was revoked for both Shiver and Bethel. The reason was not new evidence of criminal activity. It was television. The pair had appeared on Good Morning America and Inside Edition, violating Bahamian pretrial publicity rules that prohibit defendants from discussing pending cases in the media. Judge Grant Thompson called it a blatant disregard for the court's leniency. Both were returned to Fox Hill Prison in Nassau, a facility known for its harsh conditions. Shiver was released on bail again on February 13, 2025, after her attorneys successfully argued for reconsideration. The trial has been postponed 4 times. First, from March 2024 to March 2025, then to August 2025. Now the trial is scheduled for March 2, 2026, in Nassau. The delays have been attributed to scheduling conflicts, additional evidence gathering, and the complexities of coordinating between Bahamian and American legal systems. A separate incident further complicated matters. After returning to the United States, Shiver began dating Dorsey Ryan Love of Ashford, Alabama. In April 2025, Love was indicted for allegedly strangling her. He pleaded not guilty in May 2025. The case remains pending. The defense maintains that the WhatsApp message was a figure of speech spoken in anger, not a literal murder order. Bethel told Good Morning America that nobody ever wanted Robert dead. Defense attorneys have argued that the phrase "kill him" is common hyperbole, the kind of thing people say when they are frustrated but never intend to act upon. If convicted, however, all 3 defendants face 30 to 60 years in a Bahamian prison. The Bahamas takes conspiracy to commit murders seriously, and the evidence prosecutors have assembled, particularly the digital trail, presents significant challenges for the defense. As of March 2026, the trial remains scheduled for March 2nd. Lindsay Shiver is out on bail in the Dothan, Alabama area. Robert Shiver has primary custody of the 3 children and is in a public relationship with reality TV star Savannah Chrisley, known for her family's show, Chrisley Knows Best. At a December 2023 court appearance, Robert told the court he was thankful to be alive. Lindsay Shiver's case hinged on words discovered in a digital conversation. But for the next woman on this list, the incriminating evidence was far more tangible. Assault rifles, handguns, tens of thousands of dollars in cash, and a boyfriend who happened to be one of Mexico's most wanted cartel operatives. Laura Zuniga. Laura Elena Zuniga Huizar had just been crowned Miss Hispanic America when soldiers stopped the SUV she was riding in. What they found inside would strip her of every title she had earned and turn her name into a cautionary tale about the intersection of beauty pageants and cartel culture. Born January 3, 1985, in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Laura Zuniga came from one of Mexico's most notorious regions. Sinaloa is the birthplace of some of the country's most powerful drug cartels, a place where narco culture permeates everyday life. Before entering pageants, Zuniga worked as a preschool teacher, a detail she would later emphasize when trying to distance herself from the criminal allegations. She became one of Mexico's most decorated pageant contestants in a remarkably short period. She won Nuestra Belleza Sinaloa 2008 on July 2nd in Mazatlan. 2 months later, she competed at Nuestra Belleza Mexico 2008 on September 20th in Monterrey, finishing as first runner-up against competitors from across the country. That placement automatically qualified her to represent Mexico at Miss International 2009. Her highest title came in October 2008, when she was crowned Reina Hispanoamericana, or Miss Hispanic America, defeating contestants from across Latin America. It was a significant achievement, placing her among the most recognized faces in the Spanish-speaking pageant world. 2 months later, on December 22nd, 2008, the Monday before Christmas, everything changed. a military checkpoint in Zapopan, Jalisco, stopped two large SUVs traveling together. Inside one of them was Zúñiga, along with 7 men. One of those men was her boyfriend, Ángel Orlando Garcia Urquiza, a 29-year-old high-ranking operative of the Juarez cartel. Garcia Urquiza was not a minor figure. His brother Ricardo, known as El Doctor, had served as the Juarez cartel's operational commander until his arrest in 2005. The Garcia Urquiza family was deeply embedded in one of Mexico's most violent criminal organizations, responsible for countless deaths and the trafficking of billions of dollars worth of narcotics. Soldiers searching the vehicles discovered 2 AR-15 assault rifles, 3 handguns, 633 cartridges, 9 magazines, 16 cell phones, and $53,000 in United States currency. Some reports indicated cocaine and methamphetamine were also found among the cargo. When questioned, Zúñiga offered an explanation that strained credibility. She told police she was heading to a Christmas party and was planning trips to Bolivia and Colombia to go shopping. The claim was widely ridiculed in Mexican media, given that both nations are major cocaine producers and hardly typical shopping destinations. She later changed her story, claiming on Radio Formula that she had been kidnapped by Garcia Urquiza and had no knowledge of his criminal activities. Investigators noted, however, that she had made unexplained trips to Colombia that year, unconnected to any modeling work. The pattern raised questions about the true nature of her relationship with Garcia Urquiza and the cartel. So was Laura Zúñiga a victim of circumstance or a willing participant in cartel operations? On December 26, 2008, a judge ordered her detained for 40 days on charges of racketeering, drug trafficking, weapons possession, and money laundering. The pageant world moved swiftly to distance itself from the scandal. Nuestra Belleza Mexico revoked her designation as Miss Mexico International 2009 on December 25th, Christmas Day, replacing her with first runner-up Ana Gabriela Espinoza. The Reina Hispanoamericana title was revoked the following day, passing to Vivian Noronha Cia of Brazil. Then came an unexpected turn. On January 30th, 2009, Zúñiga was released after the judge found no evidence directly tying her to criminal activity. All charges against her were effectively dropped. The 7 men remained in custody to face prosecution. The case had far-reaching cultural consequences that extended well beyond Zúñiga herself. Her arrest directly inspired the critically acclaimed 2011 Mexican film Miss Bala, which received 8 award nominations and was remade by Hollywood in 2019 with Gina Rodriguez in the lead role. Journalist Javier Valdez wrote the 2009 book Miss Narco, examining ties between narco-traffickers and beauty contestants. Tragically, Valdez himself was assassinated by cartel gunmen in 2017. The case spotlighted what became known as buchona culture, the subculture of cartel girlfriends identifiable by expensive clothes, designer jewelry, and cosmetic surgery. It prompted congressional inquiries into whether cartel money was laundering through pageant organizations, funding contestants in exchange for access and influence. The danger was not theoretical. In November 2012, another beauty queen, Maria Susana Flores Gómez, who held the title of Mujer Sinaloa 2012, was harmed fatally during a cartel military shootout. She was just 22 years old. As of late 2024, Laura Zúñiga, now in her late 30s, maintains a low public profile in Mexico. She made a quiet return to modeling around 2010 and gave interviews in 2012 and 2016, emphasizing her prior career as a kindergarten teacher. She has criticized media portrayals linking her to figures like Emma Coronel, the wife of El Chapo. She has never been convicted of any crime. though the questions surrounding her time with Garcia Urquiza have never fully been answered. Zúñiga's case involved allegations of cartel ties that were ultimately unprovable. But the next case on this list involves evidence so damning, so meticulously documented, that a jury needed less than 3 hours to reach its verdict. And the victim was 18 months old. Trinity Madison Pogue. Trinity Madison Pogue was 18 years old, a college freshman, and the reigning Miss Donaldsonville. Within 6 months of earning her crown, she would be charged with taking the life of a toddler left in her care. The evidence against her would include text messages describing her hatred for the child. Trinity Madison Pogue, from Donaldsonville, Georgia, was crowned Miss Donaldsonville 2023 and competed in the Miss National Peanut Festival pageant, one of the region's most prestigious local competitions. She enrolled as a freshman at Georgia Southwestern State University in Americus, Georgia, in August 2023. The university selected her for the President Jimmy Carter Leadership Program, an honor reserved for students demonstrating exceptional promise. She was dating Julian Williams, who had a young son from a previous relationship. The child, 18-month-old Romeo, went by the nickname Jackson Drew. Williams would sometimes leave the toddler in Pogue's care while he ran errands or attended to other responsibilities. On January 14, 2024, Williams left his son in Pogue's care in her dormitory room on the Georgia Southwestern campus. He departed at 11:55 in the morning to get pizza from the nearby Walmart. He returned approximately 35 minutes later, at 12:30 in the afternoon. When he walked through the door, he found his son unresponsive. No pulse, not breathing. The child, who had been alive and well less than an hour earlier, was now fighting for his life. Williams rushed the toddler to Phoebe Sumter Hospital. Emergency room physician Dr. Michael Bussman, with more than 30 years of experience treating trauma patients, documented that the child arrived pulseless. He observed swelling on the child's face, liquid coming from his nose, and significant swelling on the back of his head. Dr. Bussman noted the head injury appeared to be from a direct blow rather than an accidental fall. Medical imaging revealed the full extent of the damage. The child had suffered a skull fracture and a liver laceration. Despite the medical team's efforts, the child passed away at the hospital. He was 18 months old. The autopsy ruled the manner of death a homicide. The cause was blunt force trauma to the head, neck, and torso, including massive brain bleeding and an occipital skull fracture at the base of the skull. The medical examiner found no old injuries anywhere on the child's body. All trauma was recent, occurring within hours of his death. Pogue gave shifting accounts of what happened during the 35 minutes she was alone with the child. She first claimed the child had been eating chips before becoming unresponsive. Emergency medical services found no chips at the scene. The hospital found no evidence the child had been eating anything. She then said the child had simply fallen from a bed. When that explanation failed to account for the severity of the injuries, she finally told Dr. Bussman that she had shaken the child. Dr. Bussman testified at trial that the injuries were not consistent with a fall from a bed. The trauma pattern indicated direct blows, not impact from a tumble. He estimated the injuries occurred 30 to 40 minutes before hospital arrival. That window corresponded exactly to when Pogue was alone with the child. What kind of person expresses hatred toward an 18-month-old in text messages? The digital evidence proved devastating at trial. Investigators extracted text messages from Pogue's phone that painted a disturbing picture of her attitude toward the child. She had written to her roommate that the child hated her and that she hated him. She asked why she felt anger toward the toddler. She joked about wanting to punch the child. On December 10, 2023, just 5 weeks before the child's death. She texted Williams about letting the child hit the wall. She added that the situation hurt her and that she could not be around him anymore. The messages suggested a pattern of frustration and resentment building over weeks. Perhaps most damning was her internet search history on January 14th, conducted while at the hospital as the child lay dying. She had searched for the phrase, "How do you get a brain bleed?" Former dorm mates testified the child was always crying when with Pogue and responded better to other people. Pogue was arrested on January 19th, 2024, 5 days after the incident. She was charged with aggravated battery, felony murder, and first-degree cruelty to children. Despite the severity of the charges, she was released on $75,000 bond. The indictment eventually expanded to include 6 charges: malice murder, cruelty to children in the first degree, 2 counts of felony murder, and 2 counts of aggravated battery. She pleaded not guilty to all counts. The trial ran December 2nd through 5th, 2025, in Sumter County before Judge W. James Sizemore, Jr. District Attorney Louis Lamb presented the prosecution's case. The defense, led by attorney Wilbur T. Gamble, argued the investigation was flawed. They pointed out that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had discarded a diaper with apparent blood on it before testing could be completed. Investigators also found no physical evidence of blood anywhere at the scene. The jury was not persuaded by the defense arguments. After nearly 3 hours of deliberation, they found Pogue guilty on 5 of 6 counts. She was acquitted only on malice murder, which would have required proof of premeditation and intent to end life. The felony murder convictions, however, carried the same weight. Judge Sizemore sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, plus 20 concurrent years for cruelty to children. Father Julian Williams testified emotionally during the sentencing phase, showing jurors the jacket he had worn while rushing his son to the hospital. The jacket was still stained with vomit. Williams told the court it was the last thing he had to remember of his son. As of December 2025, Trinity Madison Pogue is serving a life sentence with parole eligibility after 30 years. She has 30 days from the December 5th verdict to file an appeal. She was stripped of her Miss Donaldsonville title following her arrest. Pogue's case ended with a life sentence for harming a child. The next case also involves the exploitation of trust, but in a very different context. A regional beauty queen in Vietnam who discovered that legitimate modeling income could never fund the lifestyle the industry demanded. Vo Thi Mai Xuan won her crown in 2009. 3 years later, she was arrested in a hotel raid that exposed a high-end prostitution ring involving models, actresses, and beauty queens. The prices for their services ran into the thousands of dollars. The case would expose the dark underbelly of Vietnam's entertainment industry. Born in 1983 in Con Tho City in the Mekong Delta, Vo Thi Mai Xuan grew up far from the glamour of Ho Chi Minh City's entertainment scene. In 2003, she made the move to Vietnam's largest city, hoping to build a career in the modeling industry. 6 years later, in 2009, she won the title of Miss Southern Mekong, a regional beauty pageant held in Soc Trang Province. The title opened doors to magazine features, fashion shows, and performances, alongside other pageant winners and entertainers. But the legitimate income was not enough. Vietnam's entertainment industry operates on a paradox. It demands that models and beauty queens maintain expensive lifestyles, wear designer clothes, and project an image of success. The actual pay for modeling work rarely covers those costs. Many women in the industry face a choice between accepting financial hardship or finding other sources of income. Mai Xuan chose another path. She became involved in a high-end prostitution ring that brokered services involving models, actresses, beauty queens, and university students to wealthy clients. She initially participated herself before transitioning into a brokering role, connecting other women with clients and taking a percentage of each transaction. After winning her pageant title, her prices escalated dramatically. What had once been hundreds of dollars per encounter became thousands. The ring's leader, Tran Quang Mai, maintained detailed profiles of dozens of entertainment industry women and organized overseas tours for wealthy Vietnamese men costing tens of thousands of dollars. Models and beauty queens were advertised at prices ranging from $2,500 to more than $7,000 per encounter, with brokers taking approximately half the fee. On June 2, 2012, police from Ho Chi Minh City's Department of Criminal Investigation and Social Order conducted coordinated raids on 2 major hotels in District 1, the city's commercial heart. Officers caught 4 women in the act of prostitution with wealthy clients. When questioned, the women identified their handlers, leading police to the ring's brokers and organizers. How widespread was the exploitation of Vietnam's entertainment industry, and how many other women were involved? On June 3, 2012, Mai Juan, Tran Quang Mai, and other suspects were arrested. The investigation continued for months as police traced the network's full extent. 6 defendants were ultimately charged when the investigation concluded in February 2013. The trial was held on June 27, 2013, at the Ho Chi Minh City People's Court. Mai Juan attempted to minimize her role in the operation. She told the court she had introduced rich men to models twice, but never received a commission for her efforts. She claimed she was just helping friends connect with potential clients. She broke down in tears on the witness stand and cited financial hardship as her motivation. The court was not persuaded by her testimony. Evidence presented by prosecutors showed her involvement was more extensive than she admitted. Mai Xuan was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison. Ringleader Tran Quang Mai received the heaviest sentence of 5 years for organizing and profiting from the operation. As of the most recent available information, Mai Juan has served her sentence and withdrawn entirely from the entertainment industry. She effectively disappeared from media following her release. She was last spotted at a brand launch event, reportedly pregnant, suggesting she has moved on to build a private life away from the spotlight that once defined her. She is no longer active in Vietnamese showbiz. The case exposed widespread prostitution involving Vietnam's entertainment industry and highlighted the financial pressures on models and beauty queens whose legitimate income could not cover the lavish lifestyles expected in the industry. It remains one of the most significant scandals in Vietnamese entertainment history. Mai Juan's crime involved consenting adults and financial desperation. The next case involves something far more disturbing. A former Miss Kentucky, a top 12 finalist at Miss America, who used a social media platform designed for disappearing messages to send explicit. The case exposed Vietnam's entertainment industry and highlighted the financial pressures on models and beauty queens whose legitimate income could not cover the lavish lifestyles expected in the industry. It remains one of the most significant scandals in Vietnamese entertainment history. Mai Juan's crime involved consenting adults and financial desperation. The next case involves something far more disturbing. A former Miss Kentucky, a top 12 finalist at Miss America, who used a social media platform designed for disappearing messages to send explicit photographs to a student. Ramsey Carpenter Bears. Ramsey Carpenter Bears had overcome multiple sclerosis to win the crown she had chased for years. She had performed on the Miss America stage in Atlantic City. She had become a spokeswoman for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, using her platform to raise awareness about a disease that affects millions. Then she became a middle school teacher And then she sent the first photograph. Born December 15, 1990, in Hartford, Kentucky, Ramsey Bethann Carpenter grew up in a small town with big dreams. She became an accomplished bluegrass fiddle player, earning the nickname the girl with the green fiddle for her distinctive instrument. Her talent would become central to her pageant career. On August 25, 2010, at just 19 years old, she received a diagnosis that would shape the rest of her life. She had multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease affecting the central nervous system. Rather than retreat from public life, she made the diagnosis her pageant platform, speaking openly about living with MS and advocating for research funding. After 3 unsuccessful attempts at the Miss Kentucky crown, she finally won on July 12, 2014, on her 4th try. The persistence paid off in spectacular fashion. At the Miss America 2015 pageant in Atlantic City, she won the preliminary talent competition with her bluegrass fiddle performance, impressing judges with both her technical skill and her stage presence. She placed in the top 12 as a semi-finalist, one of the highest finishes by a Miss Kentucky in recent memory. During her reign, she was awarded the Heather French Henry Quality of Life Award and served as spokeswoman for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. She traveled the country sharing her story, inspiring others with chronic illnesses to pursue their dreams. She married Charles Bearse in July 2016, seemingly beginning the next chapter of a charmed life. After her reign ended, Bearse transitioned to teaching. She became an 8th grade science teacher at Andrew Jackson Middle School in Cross Lanes, West Virginia. She was responsible for educating young teenagers, a position requiring both professional boundaries and personal integrity. Between August and October 2018, she exchanged explicit photographs with a former student via Snapchat, a platform specifically designed for messages that disappear after viewing. She sent at least 4 images to the recipient, a boy who had previously been in her class. Bearse later testified that the first photograph was accidentally sent, intended for her husband. She claimed that afterward the student asked for more images, and she was afraid to not appease him. The defense attempted to frame her as a victim of manipulation rather than a perpetrator. On December 5, 2018, the boy's mother discovered the images on her son's phone while doing a routine check of his device. She immediately reported the discovery to the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office. The investigation moved quickly. 2 days later, on December 7, 2018, Bearse was arrested at age 28 on 4 felony counts of distribution or display of obscene matter to minors. When confronted by investigators, she admitted she had sent the photographs. Released on $10,000 property bond, she was immediately suspended from her teaching position. She deleted all her social media accounts, retreating from the public eye. What leads someone who has achieved national recognition to risk everything through a platform designed for messages that vanish? In December 2019, Bearse pleaded guilty to 1 reduced felony count of possession of material depicting minors in sexually explicit conduct. The plea deal dropped the original 4 distribution charges in exchange for her admission of guilt. She addressed the court directly, stating that since she was the adult and he was just a teenager, it was her fault. She said she accepted full blame for the situation. She said she messed up big time. On July 15, 2020, Judge Louis H. Bloom sentenced her via video conference due to the pandemic. She received 2 years in prison at Lakin Correctional Center, followed by 10 years of supervised release. Most significantly, she was ordered to register for life under West Virginia law, including regular lie detector tests and drug screens. She was ordered to report to prison by 10 in the morning on July 20, 2020. Sergeant Brian Humphreys of the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office called the case a wake-up call to all parents of young children regarding social media risks. The case highlighted how platforms designed for ephemeral communication can facilitate inappropriate contact between adults and minors. As of 2025, Bears completed her 2-year prison sentence around mid-2022 and entered the supervised release phase, which continues until approximately 2032. She remains subject to lifetime registration with public disclosure of her status and restrictions on residence and employment near schools or minors. She has maintained a very low public profile since her release. If you like this video and haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to join. We post a new case every day, so hit subscribe and don't miss what's coming next. Bears' crime involved the exploitation of trust and technology. The next case reveals how an entire pageant system can fail when basic vetting procedures are ignored. A woman crowned Miss Cayman Islands Universe while facing active criminal charges. The committee either did not know or did not care. Tiffany Connolly. Tiffany Connolly was crowned Miss Cayman Islands Universe while facing active criminal charges for assault. The pageant committee either did not know or did not care. Within 6 months, she would be found guilty on all counts, stripped of her title, and the entire franchise would collapse in scandal. Tiffany Leanne Connolly, 24 years old from West Bay, Grand Cayman, was crowned Miss Cayman Islands Universe 2022 on August 6th at the Westin Hotel. The coronation was a lavish affair befitting the island's most prestigious pageant. She received a catalog of prizes, including a 70,000 Cayman Islands dollar annual scholarship, a stipend for living expenses, and a car. Her crowning over first runner-up Chloe Powery Doxey was celebrated in local media as the beginning of an exciting reign. What the pageant committee did not realize or chose to ignore was that Connolly was already facing serious criminal charges from an incident 10 months earlier. A prior magistrate had failed to record a previous conviction for similar offenses, including assault and disorderly conduct. Because of this clerical failure in the court system, Connolly appeared to have a clean record and met the pageant's eligibility requirements. The vetting process, such as it was, saw nothing to disqualify her. The incident that should have disqualified her occurred on October 15th, 2021, shortly after 10 in the evening. Connolly visited the West Bay home of her ex-boyfriend and his father following a breakup. When the father opened the door and told her to go home, she launched an unprovoked attack. She punched both men repeatedly. She bit them. She kicked them. She head-butted them. The assault was sustained and violent. The father later described the encounter as terrifying and a chaotic and explosive situation. He received several blows and a burst lip that required medical attention. Recognizing the optics of the situation, he called a neighbor to witness the scene, conscious of how 2 men engaging with a young woman in such a chaotic situation might appear to responding officers. At the Cayman Islands Detention Center after her arrest, Connolly's behavior did not improve. She was combative, belligerent, and violent with officers, assaulting police personnel in incidents partially captured on closed-circuit television. She also damaged the vehicles of both victims and destroyed a pair of reading glasses. How did a woman facing 7 criminal charges end up wearing a crown and representing her nation on the international stage? She was charged with 2 counts of common assault, 2 counts of damage to property, 2 counts of assaulting a police officer, and 1 count of disorderly conduct. Connolly entered not guilty pleas in March 2022 and was released on bail pending trial. Despite the pending charges, she was crowned Miss Cayman Islands Universe just 5 months later. When news of the pending charges became public, outrage spread across the islands. The pageant committee suspended Connolly from public appearances only after the backlash erupted, a reactive measure that did little to repair the damage to the organization's credibility. The trial commenced October 17, 2022, before Magistrate Philippa McFarlane. Connolly testified she was acting in self-defense and claimed she had been set up by the victims. She maintained her innocence throughout the proceedings. Because of the trial, she did not attend Miss Universe 2023 in New Orleans. First runner-up Chloe Powery Doxey replaced her as the Cayman Islands representative. On February 9, 2023, Magistrate McFarlane delivered the verdict. She found Connolly guilty on all 7 charges, calling the evidence against her overwhelming and her testimony not plausible. The self-defense claim had not withstood scrutiny. Connolly was formally stripped of her Miss Cayman Islands Universe title on February 13, 2023. Tourism Minister Kenneth Bryan announced the decision at a press conference, confirming what most observers had expected since the guilty verdict. After multiple postponements, Connolly was sentenced on November 14, 2023. More than 2 years after the original incident. She received 3 months imprisonment for the assault charges and 6 months for property damage. Both sentences were suspended for 2 years, meaning she would serve no additional jail time unless she reoffended. She was ordered to pay $2,260 in compensation to her victims. The court also required her to complete mandatory anger management classes, undergo mental health treatment, and submit to routine drug tests. Connolly blamed the incident on an episode of mental illness. The scandal had consequences far beyond Connolly herself. The Cayman Islands government dropped the Miss Cayman Islands Universe franchise entirely. Tourism Minister Bryan pulled out as franchise holder, unwilling to continue association with an organization so badly damaged by the controversy. The franchise was subsequently taken over by a private committee attempting to rebuild its reputation. The case exposed catastrophic failures in both the pageant vetting process and the court system. A magistrate's failure to record a prior conviction allowed a defendant to appear eligible when she was not. A pageant committee failed to conduct adequate background checks on its contestants. The result was an international embarrassment for the Cayman Islands. As of early 2026, Connolly is free on her suspended sentence. The behavioral conditions extended through approximately late 2025. Connolly's case revealed institutional failures that allowed a defendant to compete while facing active charges. The next case involves a different kind of failure. A beauty queen in Venezuela who claims she had no idea her boyfriend was one of South America's most wanted drug lords. A man hunted by the CIA, the DEA, and Interpol for more than 15 years. Gabriela Fernandez appeared on the cover of Playboy Venezuela. She competed in Miss Venezuela, one of the most competitive national pageants in the world. She also made hotel reservations in her own name for a man the CIA, DEA, and Interpol had been hunting for more than 15 years. She says she knew him only as Luis Fernando. Gabriela Alexandra Fernandez Ocando hails from Maracaibo, Zulia State, Venezuela. She won Miss Zulia 2008 on May 7th, earning the right to represent her state at the national competition. She then competed in Miss Venezuela 2008 on September 10th, representing Zulia against dozens of other hopefuls. While she did not win the national crown, she was noted for her striking appearance and subsequently built a successful modeling career that included the Playboy Venezuela cover. The man she became involved with was Daniel Barrera, known throughout the criminal underworld as El Loco, the Crazy One. Barrera was not a minor trafficker. He was one of Colombia's most wanted criminals. the subject of an international manhunt involving multiple intelligence agencies across 3 continents. The CIA, the DEA, British intelligence, and Interpol had all devoted significant resources to tracking him down. Fernandez was charged with money laundering and criminal conspiracy for her connection to Barrera. Venezuelan prosecutors alleged she served as part of a network helping Barrera evade authorities while operating in Venezuela. She made hotel reservations in her own name to provide cover for his movements, allowing him to stay in luxury accommodations without creating a paper trail linked to his real identity. She managed his numerous luxury properties scattered across Venezuela. She allegedly laundered money through various activities connected to his drug empire. Barrera's luck ran out on September 18, 2012. He was captured in San Cristobal, Táchira State, near the Colombian border, with assistance from British and United States intelligence agencies. When authorities closed in, he was using a public phone booth, one of the few communication methods that could not be easily traced. The arrest ended one of the longest manhunts in South American history. Fernandez was arrested approximately October 1, 2012, less than 2 weeks after Barrera's capture. The National Guard intercepted her on the José Antonio Páez Highway in Barinas State while she was driving a Ford Explorer, allegedly attempting to flee to Mérida State. She was not alone. Officers arrested her alongside 2 Colombian men and 2 Venezuelan women, suggesting a coordinated escape attempt by multiple members of Barrera's network. She was detained by the Bolivarian National Intelligence Service for questioning. Did Gabriela Fernandez genuinely not know that the man she was helping was one of the most hunted criminals in the Western Hemisphere? Fernandez claimed she knew the drug lord only as Luis Fernando and had no idea of his real identity or criminal activities until she saw him on television following his arrest. Her lawyers argued that all money in her accounts came from legitimate sources, her modeling career and property sales. They portrayed her as a naive young woman who had been deceived by a manipulative criminal. Prosecutors presented what was described as irrefutable evidence at trial in the 15th Trial Court of the metropolitan area of Caracas. The evidence included financial records, property documents, and testimony about her role in the organization. Fernandez was found guilty and sentenced in 2016 to 8 years and 8 months in prison. She served her sentence at the Instituto Nacional de Orientación Femenina in Miranda State, one of Venezuela's women's prisons. She was released approximately in 2020 after serving her full term. Venezuelan media labeled her La Narco Miss, the Narco Beauty Queen, a moniker she has called deeply distressing in post-prison interviews. She has spoken about how her beauty actually made her time in prison more difficult, not easier, attracting unwanted attention from both guards and other inmates. She maintains she was exploited through her relationship with Barrera. A victim rather than a willing participant, Barrera faced a different fate. He was extradited to the United States, where American courts could impose harsher sentences than Venezuelan ones. He was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for drug trafficking charges. Fernandez's case was part of a broader pattern that emerged in 2012. 3 Venezuelan models or actresses were arrested in rapid succession for ties to organized crime, raising troubling questions about the intersection of Venezuela's beauty industry and narco-state dynamics. The cases suggested that cartels had infiltrated the entertainment world, using glamorous women as cover for their operations. As of a March 2025 interview, Fernandez has been free for almost 5 years. She has attempted to rebuild her life away from the spotlight that once defined her career. She has stated her goal is to warn other young women about the dangers of relationships with men whose wealth cannot be explained through legitimate means. Fernandez served nearly 9 years for her role in a drug lord's network. The next woman on this list served far less time for a crime that involved no drugs, no violence, and no cartel connections. Just a shaved head, fake bandages, and the sympathy of an entire community that believed she was dying. Brandy Weaver Gates. For 2 years, Brandy Weaver Gates told everyone she was dying of leukemia. She shaved her head to mimic the effects of chemotherapy. She wore surgical masks in public to suggest a compromised immune system. She organized fundraisers where friends and neighbors donated money for her treatment. She collected more than $30,000 from at least 150 donors. Many of those donors were actual cancer patients, giving what little they had to help a fellow sufferer. She never had cancer, not a single cell. Brandy Lee Weaver Gates, from Pleasant Gap, Center County, Pennsylvania, was a graduate of Bald Eagle Area High School and attended Penn State University. She held the title of Miss Pennsylvania U.S. International, part of the pageant system whose winner advances to the Miss International Beauty Pageant, one of the big 4 global pageants alongside Miss Universe, Miss World, and Miss Earth. She also worked as a youth cheerleading coach, supported living professional helping disabled adults, and a restaurant server. Between August 2013 and August 2015, Weaver Gates orchestrated an elaborate fraud by claiming she had been diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, a cancer of the blood and bone marrow, in March 2013. The deception was extraordinarily detailed and required sustained effort over years. She shaved her head multiple times to mimic the hair loss caused by chemotherapy treatments. She wore surgical masks in public, suggesting her immune system was too compromised to risk exposure to germs. She posted photographs on Facebook showing fake bandages on her arms, as if from intravenous treatments. She fabricated medical bills to show friends and family who asked about her finances. Most elaborately, she had family members drive her to Johns Hopkins Medicine in Baltimore, one of the nation's premier cancer treatment centers, for supposed chemotherapy sessions. She would tell them to wait in the lobby, then disappear into another part of the hospital for hours. When she returned, she acted exhausted and sick, as if from treatment. Her family had no reason to doubt her. She also claimed to have been burned by boiling water over 32% of her body, adding another layer to her victim narrative. In July 2015, she posted on social media that she could not believe it had been a week since she found out she was in remission again. Friends and family celebrated her recovery, unaware it was the latest chapter in a fiction that had lasted more than 2 years. She organized multiple fundraisers to capitalize on community sympathy. One was called Brandy's Benefit Bash, held in September 2013, shortly after her supposed diagnosis. Another was Bingo for Brandy, held in April 2015, which alone raised upwards of $14,000 in a single evening. In total, she collected over $30,000 from at least 150 to 165 donors. What drives someone to exploit the compassion people reserve for the dying? An anonymous letter received by Pennsylvania State Police in late June or early July 2015 prompted the investigation. Someone who knew Weaver Gates had grown suspicious and decided to alert authorities. Once investigators began looking, the red flags were everywhere. Weaver Gates could not name any of her doctors when asked for specifics. Her hair kept growing back after she shaved it. Then she would shave it again, a cycle inconsistent with actual chemotherapy, which typically prevents hair growth entirely during treatment. She insisted on attending chemotherapy sessions alone, never allowing anyone to accompany her into the treatment areas. Friends and family, now suspicious, contacted hospitals where she claimed to have received treatment. They discovered no record of her as a patient, no cancer diagnosis, no chemotherapy appointments, nothing. The entire illness had been invented. Lead investigator Trooper Thomas Stock said in 14 years of policing, he had never seen something like this case. The level of deception, the duration, and the willingness to exploit actual cancer patients made it uniquely disturbing. She was arrested on August 11, 2015, on felony charges of theft by deception and receiving stolen property. Unable to post $150,000 bail, she was jailed at Center County Correctional Facility. She was immediately stripped of her Miss Pennsylvania U.S. International title, the Pageant organization moving quickly to distance itself from the scandal. In June 2016, Weaver Gates pleaded guilty to the charges. When asked by the judge why she had done it, she offered an explanation that struck many as insufficient. She said she faked the illness to get more attention from her family. On July 26, 2016, Judge Thomas K. Kistler sentenced her to 2 to 4 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. She was ordered to pay restitution of over $30,000 to the donors she had defrauded. She received credit for nearly 1 year already served since her August 2015 arrest. District Attorney Stacey Parks Miller did not mince words about the severity of the crime. She stated that this was the ultimate betrayal of their giving community and those who actually battle cancer and their loved ones. She said Weaver Gates had stolen time and money from giving people who were actually suffering from cancer, some of whom lived near her and have since passed away from the disease. With credit for time served, Weaver Gates was eligible for release as early as 2017, with a maximum release date of approximately 2019 to 2020. She would have entered a 5-year probation period upon release, lasting through approximately 2022 to 2025. No post-release media coverage has surfaced, indicating she has maintained a low profile and avoided public attention since serving her sentence. Weaver Gates exploited the trust of a community through a fake illness. The final case on this list involves a beauty queen who exploited trust in a different way. She used her pageant credentials and wholesome image as cover for international drug smuggling. She was arrested exactly 1 week after competing at Miss World. Heather Ross, 7 days. That is how long it took for Heather Ross to go from the Miss World stage in London to a holding cell at Heathrow Airport. Customs officers found a kilogram of cocaine hidden in a specially constructed compartment in her suitcase. She had been promised $20,000 to carry it across international borders. It would prove to be the most expensive $20,000 she never received. Heather Michelle Ross came from a respectable Bermuda family. Her father, Dr. Bertram Ross, was a respected physician on the island. She attended the exclusive Clarendon School for Girls in England, receiving the kind of education reserved for the privileged. After completing her schooling, she worked as a receptionist at a management consulting firm in Hamilton, Bermuda's capital city. Standing 6 feet tall with striking features, the 22-year-old seemed destined for bigger things. In 1982, she was crowned Miss Bermuda. The title gave her the opportunity to represent her small island nation on the world stage. She competed at the 31st Miss Universe pageant on July 26, 1982, at the Coliseo Amauta in Lima, Peru. 77 contestants participated from around the globe. Ross did not place, but the experience prepared her for her next international competition. 4 months later, she represented Bermuda at the Miss World 1982 pageant on November 18th in London. Once again, she did not place. Maria Cela Alvarez of the Dominican Republic took the crown. For most contestants, failing to place would simply mean returning home and moving on with life. For Heather Ross, the journey home would take a very different turn. 1 week after Miss World, Ross was arrested. On approximately November 25, 1982, Ross arrived at London Heathrow Airport on a flight from Amsterdam. Perhaps her recent appearance at Miss World made her seem like an unlikely smuggler. Perhaps customs officers received a tip. Whatever the reason, they searched her luggage thoroughly. Inside her suitcase, officers discovered a specially constructed false bottom. Concealed within that hidden compartment was 2.2 pounds, or 1 kilogram, of cocaine. The street value was estimated between $316,000 and $320,000. Ross had been promised $20,000 for successfully delivering the drugs to England. Was Heather Ross recruited specifically because her pageant credentials would make her seem like an unlikely drug courier? Evidence suggested she was part of a larger operation. The same day Ross was arrested at Heathrow, Amsterdam's De Telegraaf newspaper reported that an unidentified man was arrested at Schiphol Airport, carrying over 3 pounds of cocaine taped to his body. Police believed he was a Bermudian crime boss connected to the same smuggling ring. The coordinated arrests indicated an organized international operation, not the work of a single amateur courier. Ross appeared at Uxbridge Magistrates Court on November 27th, just 2 days after her arrest. She entered no plea and made no request for bail. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she apparently recognized that fighting the charges would be futile. She pleaded guilty at Reading Crown Court. On January 13, 1983, Judge Kenneth Jones delivered the sentence. He stated that in some cases, less damage can be caused by bombs than by this hideous substance which she was prepared to help import. The comparison to explosives underscored how seriously British courts viewed cocaine trafficking. The judge noted he would have imposed 8 years in prison under normal circumstances. However, he reduced the sentence to 3 years because Ross had cooperated with authorities and provided information about the drug ring that recruited her. He also recommended deportation following her sentence. Ross wept as the sentence was handed down. She served 13 months at Style Prison in Derbyshire, England, before being released and deported. On February 8, 1984, she was put on a flight from the same Heathrow Airport where she had been arrested 14 months earlier. The symmetry was not lost on observers. Upon release, she expressed remorse. She said she was really sorry and did not know how she got involved in the whole mess. She called it very stupid and said it would be the biggest mistake of her life. Ross returned to Bermuda and attempted to live quietly, away from the spotlight that had once seemed so alluring. For 3 decades, she largely succeeded in rebuilding a private life. However, in 2013, more than 30 years after her conviction, her past resurfaced in an unexpected way. She had been hired as an assistant manager at a restaurant in Bermuda. An anonymous source informed the restaurant owners about her 1982 conviction and accused her of being a drug addict based on that decades-old case. She was ordered to take a drug test. Her lawyer advised that such a test was not legally required based on hearsay and a 30-year-old conviction. When she declined to take the test, she was removed from the work schedule. She took her case to the Human Rights Commission, arguing she was being discriminated against based on a crime she had long since paid for. She stated that her main bone of contention was that she was still being punished for a crime committed 3 decades earlier. The case raised questions about how long former offenders should carry the burden of past mistakes. The Ross case has had an unexpected modern legacy beyond the human rights complaint. Her real story became the template for numerous fake news articles in 2017 and 2018. These fabricated stories recycled her narrative, but falsely substituted the names of other beauty queens from the Bahamas, Guyana, Namibia, Malta, and Fiji as the perpetrator. PolitiFact investigated the fake articles and rated them as false. As of the most recent available information, Heather Ross continues to reside in Bermuda. Her case remains the only verified instance of a reigning national beauty queen being convicted of international drug smuggling within days of competing at Miss World. It stands as a reminder that the glamour of the pageant world can sometimes mask darker realities.
9 women, 9 crowns, 9 criminal cases. From murder-for-hire plots to drug trafficking to fraud to harm against children, these cases show that the pageant stage offers no protection from the consequences of criminal choices. Thanks for watching. Click here for the next video.